Hello, governor. Another video we have. Yeah, I should have asked you for intro ideas, not builds. But ask you for your build ideas, I did. And today I want to share with you some of the, not necessarily the best ones, but the ones that caught my attention, and I have something to say about them. Okay? Okay. In at number 1, we have a bunch of comments actually from 456, 4568B, and out of all of this, I ended up picking a Tenet Grigori setup. More specifically, a hybrid Tennokai setup which uses its Tennokai procs to do heavy slide attacks. This activates the Grigori's unique trait, which fires out a bouncing disc, and we're combining this with melee vortex and magnetic rush. I've actually tried a few different versions of this setup. A full-on heavy build didn't have enough damage, a hybrid setup that utilized heavy attack efficiency was a little bit better, but this Tennokai version was simply the best. The disc, when flung out at 12x combo with Tennokai, can do millions of damage to every enemy hit, which creates some absolutely enormous gas and electricity procs, because I do happen to have an electricity-based Grigori. It is somewhat difficult to utilize the vortex though, because the best thing you can do with this setup is to actually fling the disc into an already existing vortex. But that unfortunately relies on you proccing Tennokai right around the time a vortex is created, which is why initially I started off with a heavy attack build, then I transitioned into an efficiency build, and finally, when neither of them did sufficient damage, I did a Tennokai build. However, even though it can be somewhat fiddly at times, it is still a very good build, and I would definitely recommend you give it a shot. Plus, it's also a great example of why I like to do this, because it gave me an idea for the second setup. This comment was pretty straightforward: man, you really need to make a Zenistar video. But when I saw it right after testing the Grigori setup, I thought to myself, I can just do the same thing I did on the Grigori, right? It would make sense with the Zenistar, because you would have the vortex pulling enemies into your disc. So I swiftly concocted a gas magnetic build on the Zenistar with some basic stuff. It's not really worth scaling crit on the Zenistar because, well, the crit chance is mediocre at best. And I swiftly scurried off into a mission to see what it'd do. It do nothing because, the Zenistar disc is an absolute joke nowadays that does no damage, but the idea was there. You could probably get away with it in a normal mission, but in Steel Path, the disc simply doesn't do enough. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, wowee, Mr. YouTube man, what a great build, that's definitely worth showcasing in a YouTube video, but I don't see this as a complete failure. Yes, it doesn't kill enemies, but the build works the way it's supposed to. It actually triggers Vortex, which will then drag enemies into your disc. So if at some point either DE buffs the damage of the disc or someone figures out a way to scale the damage of the disc, you slap this on and bingo bango, you have an absolutely monstrous setup. But even if it was a complete failure, that's okay, it happens. It's impossible to never fail and figure out new things. Moving on to setup number 3 from RS Meep 13. Now in a nutshell, the setup is essentially Oraxia running Prisma Lenz with Frostbite, Blast Damage, Firestorm, Reinforced Bond on a pet for fire rate, and either Spectral Serration if you're going invisible, or Heavy Caliber if not. I chose the Heavy Caliber version because I don't like showcasing weapon builds on a stealth frame, and I basically just followed the instruction manual. So we have Big Boom on the Prisma Lenz, we're running Oraxia as our frame, and we have Bigus Nichus for the Reinforced Bond. Now this is an absolutely tremendous setup. I'm giving it a saucy out of 10 right away. Though I would very much recommend you go for the stealth version with Spectral Serration, which is going to have more damage, but it's also going to be a lot safer. It's just a really strong, smooth setup, no faffing around, it just works. So once again, I highly recommend it, and thank you for suggesting it. The fourth setup is from Stanley1698. And his build idea is for stationary missions, and it's utilizing Chroma's Effigy with all the new minion tech, because Effigy is technically a minion. Now, while I unfortunately don't have the right format set up to do an Umbro version here, we can still do the Summoner's Trio, which is Summoner's Wrath, Arcane Camisado, and Mod Augmented. This provides minion damage as well as a ton of strength. Additionally, we're running Precision Intensify for 90% extra power strength for Effigy, and I've also mixed in Guardian Armor for some healing. I was really excited for this one because I always had some kind of an Effigy build at all times, and I've yet to try it with all this fancy new stuff. And while it does work pretty damn well on the normal star chart, the scaling is just not there for Steel Path, or at least I can't scale it well enough to actually do anything in Steel Path. You would definitely get more out of this if you use the guided effigy augment, which allows you to move the effigy around, which actually does a decent amount of damage, but that's going to require a lot of babysitting, and it's basically a completely different build. So while yes, you can definitely use this on the normal star chart and it's going to be absolutely a-okay, if you want to take it into Steel Path, you better have a really strong pet that's gonna pick up the slack. And our final comment today is from Not Mirrors, and they say, I like to use melee affliction setup with pure heat on exhausted melees, especially ones with a lot of lifts and knockdowns like Wukong or Excalibur. I don't use it on melee weapons due to the lack of Archon Vitality synergy. This sounded absolutely tremendous to me before realizing that I'm basically already doing that on my Wukong Prime, I'm just not running the Archon Vitality. I mean, I'm not running pure heat, I run heat and vital hybrid, but still. The reason this is so good, by the way, is because every single combo on Iron Staff has a knockdown in it. So you're constantly adding more and more procs via afflictions. That on its own is already really good. I mean, the build I was running before with Umbral Vitality already trashed Steel Path. But adding in the Archon version is just a whole other level of dumb, because you're then doubling every single heat proc you proc with your Iron Staff. It's a really neat combo that I didn't even think about when putting together my Wukong build. So definitely keep that in mind if you're building your frame to use an exalted weapon. Exalted weapons can and absolutely will trigger Archon mods. Though to be fair, this build in particular doesn't really need the extra heat procs because the upfront damage alone is enough to bonk your way through Steel Path. You don't really need excessive amounts of heat procs on top. And that is pretty much it, so thank you very much for watching, as always guys, and I hope you've enjoyed the video. Then, I would also like to extend a special thank you to all the channel members. Thank you very much guys, I really appreciate your support, it means a lot to me. And I'll see you next time. Bye bye.